again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Thursday night, Gibbo and SUPERMAC join me. Hope you're doing well, lads. And as always, plenty to discuss in the crazy world of Newcastle United. And breaking news, I guess, tonight is that Dwight Gayle is having a medical with a view to a permanent move, John, to Stoke City. Sounds as if Newcastle are going to let him go for free. But it means we'll get him off the wage bill and not just as a loan, which a lot of the outgoings have been this summer. So thoughts on Dwight Gayle? I think I've seen a lot of positivity on social media as regards his contribution to Newcastle as a whole. Obviously, the last couple of years, though, he hasn't really featured. But he did a good job. He did the job he was asked to do when he arrived, but then fell out of favour and never really contributed since.
I believe he's now past his medical, which I would have fully expected him to do, of course. But it now means that's the last part of the jigsaw. I mean, it's good for him. It's good for Stoke because he's a championship goal scorer. He's got 23 goals in his last 2 seasons in the championship. One on loan at West Brom and one with us. He'll score goals for them. He's off the wage bill, as we say, but doesn't it tell us something about what's left over from Ashley era in terms of the wages given and et cetera, et cetera? We're having to give away players. I mean, we've given Hendrick to Reading on loan. We've given Hayden away on loan. We've given Gayle without a fee for a goal scorer of that quality. We might have expected or hoped to get 5 mil, 6 mil, 10 million, well, not 10 mil, but 6 mil. But, that's got nothing to do with Dan Ashworth or Eddie Howe. But we're getting nothing into the transfer pot with these transfers. But the good news is that they're off the wage bill. And with Gayle, it had to happen. Yes, we're in desperate need of a centre forward, and it means we've lost a centre forward. But he wasn't going to play anyway, guys, was he? He didn't start one game last season under 3 different managers. So he wasn't going to figure this season. In the wonderful quotes from Eddie, which I thought was terrific, a few days ago, not when the transfer was happening, I thought I was listening to a description of a different guy, because he said because I think he's clever, Eddie. He's very loyal. He wants loyalty in the dressing room. He wants togetherness. He said he was one of the greatest finishers he's ever coached in his life. But yet he was such a great finisher that he never even got a start last season when Wilson wasn't available for 3 months. And
it's not a contradiction.
And Wood is scored 1 goal. Absolutely, Malcolm. And he also said, by the way, bless him, and he was just being nice, and it was for Dwight's consumption rather than ours. He said, and in the last year, he's been brilliant. Well, in the last year, he's just sat on his backside. So, I'm sitting on my backside, but I don't think I'm necessarily being brilliant.
Yeah, but
how you can be brilliant when you're sitting on your backside? But I think that fair dues, that was about... but mind you, when we're talking about crazy quotes, if I may, guys, go off at a tangent for 30 seconds, you talk about crazy quotes, the ones I've just read from the Reading fans about Jeff Hendrick. I don't know if you saw them.
No.
He's been described by one enthusiastic Reading fan as the Irish Zidane. And I believe Zinedine is threatening to sue on the Trades Descriptions Act. He was also described by 2 other fans as Modric and De Bruyne, who are 3 world-class players. World-class players, and he's supposed to be their answer to that. He was also described as potentially a huge crowd pleaser, which is something he never quite achieved at St James's Park. And I looked up and wondered, now how do you get that wonderful reaction of fans? And then I found out how. Because he scored against Wimbledon at Plough Lane and he scored against Maidenhead in a behind closed doors friendly. Now, the last time I checked, correct me if I'm wrong, but Wimbledon were League Two side and Maidenhead are non-league part-timers. But they're Zinedine Zidane because you scored against them. Now, I think the Reading fans, bless them, have been living in a cave somewhere on the Outer Hebrides, and this is their release valve. But if he's that good, I'm just a bit cheesed off that he's not in the third midfield position for us against Nottingham Forest on August the 6th, guys. But there we are. It's a daft season when there's more pattern fortnight's rain, I think. You know, if what was happening with Dwight Gayle was mildly amusing, those sort of quotes to describe, if I'd told you those quotes, you guys, and said, who is the Newcastle player that Zinedine Zidane, Modric, and De Bruyne, and you would have instantly come back and said, oh, that's Jeff Hendrick, wouldn't you?
I think there's a hint of sarcasm there, Mal, from John.
I'm just beginning to detect it.
Mal, what did you think about Dwight Gayle? I mean, look, he, you know, just sum up Dwight Gale's career in a black and white shirt, man.
Well, it seems to me that he was only ever seen as a championship player and nothing else. And I've found myself seriously scratching my head as to how he just wasn't being used. His last start was at St James Park back in the and it was when West Bromwich Albion were in the Premiership.
Season before last,
and Murphy swung the ball in to the near post and the lad got up absolutely brilliantly and powered a header into the top corner, and he never played. He hasn't started a game since then, and it was a terrific goal. And I honestly have been able to do nothing over Dwight Gayle than scratch my head listening to the different managers making their quotes about him, and still they don't play him. There are a number of times where we have been absolutely desperate for a goal, and Dwight Gayle sits on the bench getting blisters on his backside, and suddenly they tell him to get warmed up, and he comes on for the last 2 minutes, and we're still desperate for a goal. What is the point? I found some of the management absolutely bizarre over Dwight Gayle, and I don't know why. Because as far as I'm aware, it's not as if he misbehaves. It's not as if he's an unpleasant person or anything like that. Or maybe he didn't go and knock on the manager's door and say, "Why am I being treated like this?" And then he just kept quiet and let them get away with it. But even so, that didn't help Newcastle United at all. When you think of that horrendous run in the first half of last season up until Christmas, it must have been, John, the worst run that you've ever seen.
Oh, without a shadow of doubt. 14 matches. No side has ever stayed up, Malcolm, that haven't won in the first 14 games.
Right. And how many
Never got a start.
No, he didn't get a start. How many minutes did he accomplish in that half a season, all in all? I bet it wasn't 30.
Oh, yeah.
All in all. And and we were so desperate for goals, and then we've got Wilson, who he played a third of a season and then was injured and out for a very long time, and still he couldn't get in the side. And I find it quite beyond me. It wasn't as if he was a young lad and you're not sure about putting him out there and testing him. He had proven himself over and over again.
Yeah, I mean,
I really couldn't understand it. I wish him well at Stoke City, and I think that Stoke City will really benefit by his presence in their side.
I mean, yeah, I can't say anything but good and thank him for what he's done for Newcastle United, because when he was here, when we had to come straight back up out of the Championship, he scored 23 goals for us. He was on fire. His goals per game record for Newcastle has been terrific. It's not his fault that he was fit and didn't get a start. 3 managers didn't start him last season, which is absolutely puzzling, because he never started a game under Graham Jones in the 3 games that Graham was in charge.
They had a bit of a spat, though, didn't they, John?
Sorry?
They had a spat, didn't they, the two of them?
Graham Jones and him did, evidently.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then a player who is just being completely ignored when the club is desperate for goals and he is the only proven goal scorer who's fit. Well, of course he's going to have a rant. Of course he's going to go and demand answers. Why am I not playing?
Sure.
And it's a fair and honest question to ask in those circumstances.
He goes away with my thanks, whereas Jeff Hendrick goes away with my plea that he doesn't come back. That's the difference.
Join you on that one.
That's the difference.
What's your take been on the 2 friendlies that we've seen, John? I mean, obviously Newcastle United did a fantastic job of, broadcasting both of those games across in Austria on their website, and it gave us a unique opportunity to watch the team in action quite early on. Just give us your opinion on what you saw in those 2 games. What were the high points? What were the low points? What can you see in these early parts of this season?
I'm always a little reserved and hesitant about pre-season friendlies, because they're basically there to get fit. They're not basically there to produce any sort of form guide. I mean, somebody said to me the other day, don't you think Almiron's done a lot better? He scored 2 against Gateshead. I said, wait a minute. He's a Premier League player. He scored 2 against Gateshead. So I mean, that's a double number of goals he got last season, mind, when he got 1. But I mean, so I don't read too much into friendlies. But if you took the last game that I watched, because that was the best opposition, it was a Bundesliga team. The one before that was a 3rd division side. The one before that was Gateshead. So if you take the last match, I thought we were the better side in that game in approach up to the final third. We dominated play up to the final third, got the ball, knocked it about very comfortably. The goal was either had me furious, or if it was in the Premier League, it wouldn't have stood, because the free kick we got, Trippier put his hand on the ball. The guy wasn't the correct distance away from the free kick. It come off his shins, they broke and scored. He would have got booked in another situation, moved back the correct distance, and it would have been taken again. The goal was wrong and shouldn't have counted. Doesn't matter, not a big deal, because it was just a friendly. I thought we looked decent at the back. We knocked it about terrifically. We were the better side. What I also saw, which worries me to death, is the final third. We need an outside right and we need a centre forward, because Chris Wood, bless him, I said at the end of last season that when Callum Wilson played in the last 2 games against Arsenal, when he was brilliant without scoring, sensational almost, and against Burnley when he scored twice, that I only then realised how much we'd missed him when he was out injured for so long. Now, in this game, this reminded me how much I hadn't missed Chris Wood, because, I mean, bless him, he couldn't trap a bag of cement. I mean, he not only was he one paced, but technically he was below average. He was awful. And he reminded me, and now Gale's gone. And as I said, even if Gale had stayed, for some reason he wouldn't have started if Callum Wilson was injured. That's the way it is for, or has been for Dwight. But we need a striker big time, man, because Callum is going to get injured. We don't like it. It's not, I mean, I don't even like saying it because of the concern I've got. But when I looked at Chris Wood, I knew we needed a centre forward. I also think we need an outside right. We know that Wilson's going to start, and we know that Saint-Maximin's going to start. Whether he justifies it, Saint-Maximin, or not, is a totally different matter. But we know he's going to start, and the potential's there. Whether it ever reaches fruition or he becomes Ben Arthur, that's something else. But we need a right winger. Almiron's not good enough. Fraser's better than him, but is not regularly fit, and both of them can be topped. So for me, please God, get me a centre forward first and get me a winger as well. We've sorted the back out. Our midfield is going to be workable with Joe Linton and Bruno in there, and we'll juggle one from the other three. And Elliot Anderson is going to be some player in a short while. But we do need that forward positions, Malcolm, to be.
Okay. I still think that we have somebody who would do a very adequate job on the right.
Murphy, you're thinking of?
Murphy, yeah. I think he's the best crosser in the club. He's one of the best crossers in the game. And he can cross it from anywhere from the corner flag back 30 yards. And he puts a great bend on it. Looks to make the centre forward favourite all the while. And with the support of Trippier, I think that could be a very, very good partnership. But if you're going to get a right winger, you know, for heaven's sake, get somebody who can cross a ball. There's too many wingers in the game these days who they can't get it past the near post man, and it just drives me mad when I keep seeing low crosses cut out by the first man, and the whole movement of attack from one end of the pitch to the other is just completely lost with a crap cross, and so it's just wasteful of everybody's energy, for heaven's sake. Murphy gets the ball into the box and he gives the forwards every chance to get their head to it. And so I don't think he can be ignored. And with Trippier behind him, I think they could make a really good partnership. I really do. Just moving on to Saint-Maximin, I know the club made it clear that they were making efforts to move him on, but they didn't get the interest in him, and I'm disappointed with that because I just don't think he's going to learn anything. He's not going to learn anything by his own mistakes, never mind from anybody else. And if you don't learn from your own mistakes, you'll never ever be successful. You know that you've got to think carefully about what you're doing. Is it working? If it's not, how do I change it? How do I look for the most positive outcome? And Saint-Maximin doesn't do that. And I say this over and over again that if there were gates at the end of the pitch, just behind the corner flag, he'd just keep running with the ball and finish up running down Grey Street, for heaven's sake. You know,
so would Almiron, Malcolm.
Well, Almiron as well, yes. for somebody to get excited about Almiron scoring 2 against Gateshead, heaven help us. That he's had 2 years now, isn't it? He's had 2 years.
3.5 years.
Oh, it's 3.5. Good.
3.5, yeah.
3.5.
Well, gee whiz, to prove himself, John, with people who do prove themselves, they do it within 3 or 4 games.
Malcolm, I looked up his record today, Malcolm. Almiron. He's been here 3.5 years, just taking Premier League games because they're the most important. Over 109 goals. His goals per game ratio is 1 every 12.5 games. And in that time, 3 assists, where we're talking about a winger who makes goals. Now, I know what he does well, like he runs, but I don't want Mo Farah. I want somebody that can actually play football. I mean, he can run with Mo Farah all day long, and he'll be there with him. And I know he tracks back, which is something Saint-Maximin doesn't do, and he'll get in a tackle. But really, I'm looking for more than him. If we are a side that finished, Steve, 13th last season, and we're looking to knock on, and that's what the owners are doing, they're not in this to stand still. They're in it to go forward. At what pace we can go forward, that's a different thing, but we're going to go forward. Now, if we're going to go forward, an outside right, which is the only position Almiron's going to get in the team, he's not going to get in on the other flank because of Saint-Maximin, and he may or may not be good enough, but he's going to be given an opportunity. He's not going to get in as a 10, and he's not going to get in midfield, which was suggested to me, because he's got Joe Linton and Bruno, and one of the other 3 guys will get in there with Elliot Anderson lining up. So that's where Almiron's going to be. And if you have ambition, maybe this is cruel, maybe I'm being cruel, but if you have ambition, Almiron's not good enough to start in this side. Yes, he's good enough for this coming season to sit on the bench and come on for the last 20 minutes when defenders are getting tired, and he can run at them because he's quick. But he shouldn't be an automatic starter, and he won't be at Newcastle. Wouldn't you agree, Malcolm?
Yeah, yes, I would. He shouldn't be a starter. I go back because it's obvious now that the owners of the club and the manager, and I would hope all of the players, that they want to now make a big leap up the Premiership. So to go up quite a few positions. And I go back to what I learned from Alex Stock, who was my manager at Luton Town before I came to Newcastle. I was only there 2 seasons. But Alex Stock's theory on a season was that everybody had to put into the pot. And so everybody was responsible for getting a set amount of goals. And even with we had a left back who didn't like crossing the halfway line, but he put the pressure on him by saying, "Here's your target of goals," albeit it was only 3. But Almiron's never scored 3, and Alex Stock was wanting 3 goals from a left back who didn't like crossing the halfway line. You know, that he was pushing him to go do it. And with Almiron, for heaven's sake, and if you work it out, just in every single game, how the amount of time that Almiron has possession of the ball, and put on top of that the amount of time that Saint-Maximin has possession of the ball, and all of a sudden you're taking what, 7-8 minutes out the game, and it's not achieving anything. That's 7 or 8 minutes out of Newcastle's possession time, and they're not. They don't function in any dangerous fashion to to the opposition. They're not going to score. They're not going to make goals. I was horrified when I saw that Saint-Maximin last season, I think he scored 3 and he made 3. He should be scoring 12 and making 20.
If you look, Malcolm, at what we were saying then, what you were rightly saying, if we look at the ratio of goals per game at Newcastle last season, for me, there was only 3 players that really hit their targets. Callum Wilson, when he was in the side, goals per game is good. Bruno, without a shadow of doubt, overhit his target. He scored 6 and about 11. And for a midfielder who was supposed to start as a deep midfielder. And you've got to say goals per game for right back, Trippier with his free kicks.
Yes.
When he scored about 2 and 5. They're the 3 guys that did that. But, you know, Saint-Maximin didn't do that. Almiron didn't do that. Fraser didn't do that. Wood didn't do that. We have a lot that can, and I know they can contribute to other things, but we are now looking for perfection. We're not being ultra critical about Newcastle United. We're enjoying talking about this, all of us and all the fans as well, because we're making strides forward. And to continue making strides forward, the bar's got to go from there to there to there to there.
And that means
the only way that'll do is if we're not content with what we're getting. We've got to say, Almiron, is he good enough? We've got to say, Fraser, is he good enough? Murphy, is he good enough? And it might be no. Saint-Maximin, are you good enough? Only if you improve. And if you don't improve, it's no with you as well.
Right.
We've got to look at that. Isn't that so, Malcolm?
Yes. Again, I go back to Alex Stock. He would have the statistics of every position that you can finish in, and it would be how many goals you need to score, how many goals you can only, you've got to limit the goals against to, and so the greater ratio, the difference between goals against and goals for, the more it goes like that, the higher up the table you go.
Mm.
And so you're looking for people to seriously defend and to seriously attack and score goals. Well, if you've got players in the side who don't score goals, you really are going to struggle, seriously going to struggle. And that's what Newcastle have found themselves doing for the past few years.
Can I just make a suggestion, lads? You know this ASM thing. I've had this conversation with a few of my mates now, and I've compared him a little bit to Kieran Dyer. You know, when Newcastle had been on that wonderful adventure of Keegan, and then, you know, they dropped a little under the Dalglish and Hullett regimes, and then Bobby Robson came back in. We seen the revitalization of Alan Shearer, and then Newcastle challenging for Europe again, and then so Bobby goes, but Kieran Dyer was one of those players who split fans' opinions. He had all the talent in the world within him, but he never really displayed it a great deal on the pitch. You know what I mean? There was too little there. There was plenty of antics off the pitch. Didn't look after himself. And I feel that when Newcastle are doing badly and you're on that downward trend, when you have a player like ASM who gets you out of your feet when nobody else does, there becomes this kind of, he's our best player, he's the talisman, he's the man who can make us tick. But when things change and you start bringing in quality players like Bruno, ASM's frailties and exactly what kind of player become fairly obvious. He's not the player to build a team on.
Sure, but you watch Bruno, and he looks at the goal and he makes a run at it, and once the ball gets in front of him, boom, he's going to finish it. Mm. You watch ASM. He'll run across that way. He'll run across that way. He doesn't make a run at goal. Almiron, where does he run to? He makes a run at the corner flag. And they don't seem to have the ability to be able to go through the centre and take on players play 1-2s. Do you ever see either of them looking to play a 1-2?
No.
Doesn't happen. It really doesn't happen. Do they make a pass, keep the run going? No, they make the pass and then they stop.
I hope, Malcolm, that Saint-Maximin realises what this season is, because we keep hearing what he thinks he is, a future Ballon d'Or winner, etc., etc., etc. We know the natural gifts God's given. And Patrick Vieira, when he was his manager, was the first to highlight, before he become on the national scene, he was the first to highlight and say that the trouble with Alan Saint-Maximin is that he believes that God-given talent is enough to get you to the top. It isn't. You've got to have the right wished and desire to work hard and to burst the gut and to do everything to reach the very top. May I say that this season coming will make or break Saint-Maximin.
I think,
Penny will
John, in all
either
honesty,
drop-
I thought that last season broke him.
Oh, well, but what I'm saying as a result, Malcolm, and you're right, that we've gone one level, or attempting this season to go one level higher. He is still here and will be here on August the 6th, and will start, therefore, on August the 6th. But this season, the penny will either drop, he'll work incredibly hard, and he will be the man that can be part of Newcastle going forward, or he'll be Hatton Ben Arthur. And he'll go, and fans in 2 or 3 years' time will say, remember that wonderful game when he did that and he did that? What a talent. It's a pity it didn't happen. He'll become Kieran Dyer, he'll become Hatton Ben Arthur, he'll become whatever.
Yeah.
But this is and if the age is at as well, he is no longer just a young boy that's got a chance, etc., etc. This is his make or break season, and if he isn't careful, it's his break season. And I take what you're saying, Malcolm, about he didn't do himself any service last season. Certainly not in the second half of the season. Certainly not in 2022. Yeah. All his goals came before that.
Yes.
So it is a make or break season, and it is for us, because Eddie Howe will look at him this season, and he'll either say, this fella can help us, or this fella's a liability, man. And it'll be like that. I'm certain it'll be like that. This is a heck of a season. And I just hope he realizes that. Because if he doesn't, Hatton Ben Arthur, never realized, Steve, Hatton Ben Arthur, that he just thought he was a great player because he had great talent. He never realized. And where's he now? Has he ever fulfilled it? Not one.
He's another one.
Absolutely.
He's another one.
He's a wasted talent. He could have been something extra special. He is a wasted talent. This guy will be a wasted talent if the penny doesn't drop. And Patrick Vieira told him that about 4 seasons ago. And by the way, if Patrick Vieira talks to you about football, you should listen. Because he was a bit tasty. He was at a gravy mine, Vieira. So you should listen.
If I were Eddie Howe, what I would do is I would say to Saint-Maximin, between now and the end of December, you must score a minimum of 6 goals. If you don't, I'm putting you on the transfer list in January. And also, you have to make 9 goals. You have to lay on 9 goals for other players between now and the end of December. And then if he got them, I would say, right, now go and do it again. Even increase your numbers, but don't ever decrease them. But at the moment, that if everybody doesn't get their equal share of the goals, all you do is drop down the table. It doesn't matter how well you play. It doesn't matter how exciting the crowd think 1 or 2 certain players are. If they are not doing the most important task, which is to stick the ball in the net enough times to win your games, then you go down the table.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Malcolm, about setting a target and saying, if not by January, we'll flog you. The only trouble with that is when you put him on the transfer list in January, nobody will take him, like, because he's been doing bad.
And I would say that if nobody comes in for you, you can see the season out in the under 23s.
Whoa, there we go. That would be something. By the way, do you think, yes, going off a totally tangent where you were looking at people to do what they can do to their best? I'll ask both of you. I'll start with you, Steve, to give you a yes or no answer. If we put Almiron, we've talked about him. I've talked about him, in my humble opinion, not being good enough to be a starter at Newcastle. Would Newcastle United ever get the £20 million back on Almiron? Steve, yes or no?
No.
Correct.
No.
No for you, Malcolm?
No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't, because you see, when I was managing, your Bible was the Rothmans annual yearbook.
It was. I remember. Yeah. It was, Malcolm. Yes.
And you could look back at the previous season and the seasons before, and so one of the first things, if I was sat with my coaches and my youth development officer, and one of them would say, "Oh, by the way, have you seen this lad playing for Peterborough?" The first thing you do is reach for the Rothmans and have a look, see what he did last season. And if they're talking about centre forward, how many goals did he score in how many games? That's the first thing you do. And why things have changed in scouting, whereby they're happy to bring forwards in who can't score goals, and Newcastle have been good at this over the last 3 or 4 years. Wood, Almiron, Saint-Maximin, for heaven's sake, and others that we forgot all about after a couple of days. It's people going out and convincing people to spend a lot of money on players who actually don't have any CV at all. There's nothing on the CV.
I mean, that's an interesting thing, Steve, by the way, that the guy that's just put the thing along the bottom there about Chris Wood. You know, we've been talking recently about Newcastle United having a situation whereby this season they're having to give away players because their wages are high and they're selling into the second division.
Well,
the championship.
This is the problem, John, because the level of wages between the championship and the Premiership are so great now.
But we've had to do that, Malcolm. With
there's no
Henry.
natural move on.
We've had to do it with Hayden. We've had to do it with Gayle. And there's a decent point that was on the screen there. And I don't want to be too cruel to Chris Wood, but if we decided at the end of this coming season that we wanted to move Chris Wood on, we would have a problem because his wages would be too high. He's on the wrong side of 30. He doesn't score goals, and we would have to be giving him away. Yeah. Now, the difference is that the guys that bought Chris Wood, the new regime, that's the only, in my humble opinion, and it's very easy with hindsight, that is the only mistake in the transfer market. I think everybody else have taken in the transfer market has been, to a degree, successful. I mean, Trippier's hugely successful. Bruno's hugely successful.
John, can I ask you,
more than enough.
Sorry to interrupt you in full flow. Can I ask
Go on, mate.
If let's say you say Wood was a mistake, it's your mistake. We needed a striker in that period in January. We had to bring somebody.
Get one.
But we had to bring somebody in.
We
And
needed, Steve,
the nine game run, and I will defend.
It was a goal scorer.
A goal scorer, correct?
We needed goals.
And again,
and
that's you always
a striker who didn't score goals.
But the 9-game unbeaten run that we played, which I'll always point back to last season, which in essence kept Newcastle United in the Premier League. Chris Wood played every game and played every minute and played a massive part in keeping Newcastle United in the Premier League. And had Newcastle been relegated last season, that would have been catastrophic for the new owners, financially catastrophic for the football club, and 25 million for Chris Wood, it kept us up. That's what I'll always say about Chris Wood. Now, I don't think the owners feel that he is part of the big plan, but I will always say Chris Wood helped keep us in the Premier League last year.
I know you've said that, Steve, and I appreciate that. And a lot of Newcastle United fans say that. And there's no question about that. But I honestly, and I might be being harsh, I don't completely go down that route. If Newcastle United last season had played Gayle at centre forward instead of Wood, would we have lost games that we didn't lose? Was that all down to Wood? No, it was down to the whole team. And Wood contributed, but not an awful lot. I mean, we know he didn't contribute on goals, but it's a myth. It's an absolute... He didn't get the service. This didn't happen for him. That didn't happen for him.
He plays in a 4-4-2 formation, and we don't play 4-4-2.
Hey, listen, I watched the guy play in the last friendly game. He couldn't trap a bag of cement. He had an absolute one-on-one to finish. And I tell you what, he hit the top of the floodlights behind the goal. He didn't hit the bar or just go over the bar. He hit the top of the floodlights. The guy Burnley must be thrilled to bits. This guy cost 25 million. 25 million. Now, I think if we'd gone game for game that he played with Gayle, are you honestly saying that we wouldn't have stayed unbeaten? Because I think we stayed unbeaten because of the player, the other 10, as well as Chris Wood. I will not give Chris Wood no credence for that. He did help us. There's absolutely no question about that. But he is honest. As a Newcastle United fan, he is so short of what we need. Forget about last season, this season, or ever. If you are, is he better than Joselu? Is he better than Rondon? Is he better
Joselu was useless. Joselu was useless at Newcastle. He scored 14 goals last season. He actually scored more than one of the players we were actually chasing as a centre forward, if you're led to believe the press this season. But yeah, I think John Brown, a lot of people making the point, before Wood came to Newcastle, he hit double figures 4 consecutive seasons in a row for Burnley. And, from our perspective, we're looking at it going, wow, this is a good signing. But he just hasn't done well at all.
No, but that's right. And by the way, when he scored double figures, they were between 10 and 12, which is sneaking into double figures like at the very low end. And when we signed him, and by the way, I can understand why we did it, Steve. This isn't a dip at the owners or the manager or anything. There was limited availability. It was January, and Newcastle's record, as I've said, in the transfer market since has been nothing short of superb so far. Nothing short of superb. But this guy had got 10, 12 with Burnley. But in the first half of last season at Burnley, he got 3. He wasn't going to get 10, 12 but if he'd stayed at Burnley, he wasn't going to get 10, 12 again. He had tapered off. And I'm sick of being told about the goals he scored for New Zealand because they're playing Coquelete Juniors in a qualifying for the Oceania 3rd Division, mate. I mean, I could score for New Zealand now. I mean, honest to God, that sometimes don't make me smile. I have a split lip. It is a different ball game to the Premier League. But you know what? With Newcastle United, I'm harsh about centre forwards because we actually have one of two. We don't have, as a club, a history of average centre forwards. We've got a history of legends and we've got a history of crap. And there's no in between. We have one or the other is centre forwards. And I'm afraid, Chris, bless you, I love you for trying. Put it 30 grand a week, you should try. And you do. But honest, I watched him in that last game and I suddenly realised what we've actually got. And he is well short. Yes, if we take, though, Steve, his contribution to that run last season, and it's debatable. By the way, it's the best argument he's got going for him, that he was in that team. Best argument going. Are you confident, Steve, that when Callum Wilson gets injured, and he will, when he gets injured this coming season, this fella will go in either rattling the goals for us, or when he doesn't, will help us get on the unbeaten run.
I do not think Chris Wood will be able to play as the one striker, aka goal scorer. He's not capable of playing as a one up front. And if you play 4-4-2, yes, he can do a job. I think Chris Wood will be used as a bit part player next year. And I think he will be used to hold the ball up in games where we want to try and play it out and get a point away from home or get a win away from home. I genuinely don't think he can do anything at this moment in time other than defend from the front. And I just think, he was never bought. He was never bought as a long-term solution. He was bought as, people call it a panic buy. He was bought, I think, because he was the only person available. I think that's sad. And I think that's sad. And it shows you now, John, how difficult it is still for Newcastle not only to sign a striker or goal scorer, should I say, but it's such a tough position to get anybody in at this moment in time,
I think that's right.
But this whole argument goes to show. It goes to show just how little faith they had in a centre forward that they've just let go, who can score 23 goals a season in the Championship.
But he was clearly doing something off the pitch, Malcolm, which we don't know. Lots of people are alleging that he was the mole in the dressing room, which if he was, is something Newcastle weren't happy with. That's an allegation. I can't prove it. That's what a lot of people are saying. But at the same time, he just clearly wasn't fancied by anybody.
If that was true, why on earth give him a new
3-year contract
when the previous season he sat it out on the bench?
It was crazy.
May I also say, guys, the interesting thing, because I'm loving this, because it's a bit of fun and it's all about opinion, and that's gorgeous. But can I say, from Newcastle's point of view, and this has got nothing to do with the current manager or whatever, because it goes back before that. If we look at systems that suit or not, how did we sign Joe Linton for 40 million to make him a number 9 orthodox centre forward? Who scouted that and said he can do that? Because he infinitely couldn't, and I'm glad we got him because he's a cracking midfielder. But he was never. We bought him as a number 9 that scored goals, and he played wide in Germany anyway. So how did we do that? We also have just said, and I take your point totally, Steve, that Wood can't play in a 1 up front on his own. He's best in a 2, which is what he played in at Burnley when he scored his goals. Now, if we knew in January...
John, just on that point, sorry.
Malcolm, can I finish this? If we knew in January that the manager was only going to play with 1, and Steve and Eddie Howe has said always, I'll only play with 1 because if I play with 2, there's holes behind the 2. If we were only going to play with 1, what the hell were we doing buying Chris Wood if he can't play in a 1?
Yeah.
What were we doing now?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Go on, Mal. You had a point to make.
Well, the point I was going to make was that if you are going to play a 2, those 2 have got to be very happy with each other. And if you put me with Chris Wood, I would not be happy at all. I would find fault after fault after fault with him. And well, I can see it from the side, but when you're actually out there and playing with somebody, boy, that really is highlighted. All the faults, and I had a great 4 years with John Tudor. Terrific, John. He was moving all the while. He was battling with centre halves. I haven't seen movement from Chris Wood. I haven't seen him really battle with a centre half. I've seen none of that. I've seen none of him looking to move into a bit of space and say, "Come on, I'm the target man. Hit me."
I'd love to see the two of them play together, Callum Wilson and Wood, just to see what they could be like.
It just wouldn't work.
Do you not think when you're used to playing in it too, Malcolm? You know better than me. You played in this situation. You've just said the chemistry between you and John Tudor was fantastic.
Yes.
Do you not think mentally, as a player who's used to playing in a two, if you're chucked in at the deep end and told you're playing up front and we need you to score goals and you don't, that his head's gonna get down a bit and he just knows he can't play his potential. You can't play to his potential. Then
no. I think you go out there and you do your level best. But what you do is that if you haven't got the second man up front, then what you do is you put the pressure on the attacking midfielders to come in support of you, so that when the ball's being played up, that I know that there's going to be midfielders coming and supporting me on either side, for me to, if it's a really high ball, I can just nod it down to one or the other, take it on my chest, get it and just lay it off. It's as simple as that. So midfielders will get there and do that job. Because you've always got that extra man in midfield because you're missing one up front.
Yeah.
I don't really see that as an argument, in all honesty. But Chris Wood, I was listening to Eddie Howe through the season, and he was saying, "Oh, but his movement's so good," and Eddie Howe was just making excuses. Week in, week out, there was no movement from Chris Wood. And it was almost as if he was actually looking to get in amongst two or three defenders and go, "Oh, look, I'm marked heavily," instead of coming well away. If that's what you find, 3 or 4 defenders around you, go 20, 30, 40 yards. Out towards the wide, and they won't get dragged out there. You can always go and find space on a football pitch, despite the 20 outfield players that are there. You can always find some space somewhere for somebody to be able to pass the ball to you. Chris Wood was happy to stand right in the middle where all the defenders were.
I mean, the interesting thing, lads, if I may say, and it's a terrific discussion and it's lovely because we care about our club. Yeah. Bottom line, Eddie Howe is not going to play Chris Wood and Wilson together.
No.
Gale's gone, which is the correct decision for him and the correct decision for us. So we've got one striker, it's Wilson, who's got injury problems. The other guys would. Now, if you play one up front on his own, he's got to be able to score goals because there's only one. The other people are wide. There's only one through the middle striker. And if he scores 2 goals, 3 goals, 5 goals, 6 goals in a season, you're not going to finish 7th top or 8th top or 9th top with that return from your centre forward. So please let us cut all the bullshit and go out and sign a centre forward, even if it is backup to Callum Wilson to come in the games Callum's going to miss, which is why we were going for the stereotype of the 19, 20, 21-year-old, the boy from France, who will sit on the bench, learn the game, come in, go bum, bum, bum when it's necessary. That is a fascinating situation because 2 or 3 of the players we've gone for since fit that criteria, fit that mold. that they're the
Yeah, they
young
do.
striker that is going to come in and go boom. We are obviously looking for that type of guy. Because if you spend 50 million, the guy's got to start, or 40 million or 30 million. From his point of view, he's got to start. So he's either got to play 2 or he's got to start instead of Callum Wilson. But please let me have somebody. Forget personalities, forget who's nice and not nice, forget who's contributed and not contributed. Callum, if we look at the negative side, Callum Wilson, great striker though he is, isn't fit enough. Chris Wood, great worker though he is, doesn't score enough goals. Gale's gone. We need a through-the-middle striker big time. Or we'll finish 10th or 11th, or we might finish 7th or 6th. That will be decided by September the 1st.
Yeah, fascinating debate tonight, lads, which just took us into a bit of injury time. I do want to ask you one more question before we finish, and we're going to give the sponsors a shout out now. So as always, it is thank you to Spider Miner, worldwide coverage from the lads, the only cryptocurrency miner that can mine 5 different cryptocurrencies at the same time whilst using virtually no energy, and it's VPN protected by us now at www.miner.spidervpn.org. Thanks to Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website www.skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collections. Thanks to L&G Family Funeral Directors, 01913 3897245, and the Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists, www.thegohd.com. Thanks to Away Day Clothing, and thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wolves and Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at mrvickys.co.uk, 01768 210 102, or email info@mrvickys.co.uk. And thanks to Neil at Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right hand corner and subscribe for free. We still do 7 shows a week. Hit the thumb up to like the video, share to your social media, and drop into the comments to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans and to ask a question. We're also available on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. As a podcast, you can get it usually 24 hours after the show is finished on YouTube. Don't forget, we do send out a free car sticker to those of you who subscribe. Simply email john@nufcmatters.com. And please support the food bank going to NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk, and make a virtual deposit today. And John is also on Monday, the 5th of December, 2022, an evening with Frank Clark down at the Tynemouth Surf Cafe. Limited tickets available. Make sure you jump on there now. And last but by no means least, NUFC Matters Score Predictor is up and running. Join the Matters gang, enter into our own league, £10 per entry for the season. There's a cash prize winner every month, exclusive Manager of the Month t-shirt, a cash prize for the overall season winner, and Trophy and Manager of the Year t-shirt. Sign up now at NUFCmatters.com. We're also pushing Peter Beardsley Soccer School, Monday night training night, and July, August summer camps. Bookings still available now at info@peterbeardsleysoccerschool.com. Great stuff. Okay, the question I wanted to ask you, lads, was this one. And we've been talking about players all night. Mark Byers just says, is Gibbo confident, and Malcolm, that we'll get the players he says we need before the deadline? Are you confident we're going to bring more in before the 1st of September, lads?
Yes, I have a confidence that we will. I just hope that they are the players that we need. Getting in a goal scorer is never easy, and because that's what everybody's wanting, and there aren't that many about. And I like the idea of looking at bringing a youngster in. And he'll come in and out, getting plenty of games and plenty of experience of that, I'm sure. Go for that approach, I think.
The interesting thing, guys, from my point of view, purely from my point of view, I think we've got 2 deadlines. We've got the obvious deadline, which is September the 1st. We've got the other deadline, which is August the 6th, because once the season gets underway and we go bum, 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 bum with matches, do we need somebody that's available for those games? Or do we say, well, we'll take it from September and we'll fly by the seat of our pants during August? I am confident, like Mal, that we will get somebody in. It is proving, there's absolutely no question about this, it is proving difficult. This is the part that's proving difficult. But it always is, isn't it? They're the blue-eyed boys. The further forward you go, the more difficult and the more costly it becomes. And I've got it's wrong to say an awful feeling to a certain extent because it's better than nothing. But I've got a feeling that what we'll end up doing is using the on loan market. That we'll end up, and of course, clubs only become willing to do on loans in August. They've seen the players pre-season. We signed Joe Willock that way, etc., over a year ago. They see the players pre-season. I mean, Elliot Anderson, the decision is going to be made during August. Does he go into our squad or do we send him out on loan? So many clubs elsewhere in the country are adopting exactly the same thing. It might be that we get our striker on loan. In fact, I think there's a very good chance it will be that way. Certainly, we will not pay money to get a right winger and a centre forward. We'll get one of them on loan and may pay money for the other, or we might get two on loan. But that's the way we're going down. All I've done, because I'm thrilled about Newcastle United, since that little rather plumpish guy jumped in his car and went over the Tyne Bridge to be never seen again, the greatest day of my life. I am now just a little apprehensive because I want somebody else in just to provide the parachute for us this season. We are vulnerable up top if we go as we are now. We're not talking about relegation. We're not talking about the bottom half of the table, but we're talking about being a little bit more ambitious than that. We need another striker. Please, and I would honestly want a right winger.
All right, John, just out of interest, it's Mad Mag Mark, and he's written, buy Paqueta now for 45 million, or we'll pay close to double next year after he wins the World Cup with Brazil. Okay, good point. And yes, Paqueta, I think it would be excellent. But have we actually got £45 million available under the fair play scheme?
Yes. But we've only got about 50. Yeah, we have. So
I see.
If we took one guy at that and took somebody on loan, would be okay.
Right. Yeah. Well, go ahead with that deal. I've had some seriously good reports about this fella.
Yeah, well, this is it. It's all about opinions. Lots of people thoroughly enjoyed that tonight. 25 minutes, I think, was spent talking about Chris Wood. You just never know what's going to come on this show. But absolutely brilliant, lads. As always, great debate with two of my best mates in football. Great to see you. Have a good week, and we will commence battle again next Thursday. Take care, John. Take care, man.
God bless, guys.
Take care, guys. Have a good weekend.
Take care.